everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on the Sacred Ground bracelet, and you can make this bracelet to go with the Sacred Ground earrings that we made using the Stonehenge Ancient Ruins original collection. Now this bracelet is made using the light collection. So if you haven't seen the light version of Stonehenge Ancient Ruins, I'll link the unboxing in the description box below the video, and to see if you want to take a look at that. It's also, I believe, still available. So these earrings are from the original collection, and we changed the drops for the light collection. So I will show you how to do this this embellishment here in another video, as well as with the Standing Stones necklace. We did a little embellishing on this as well, and that will be a separate video where I'll show you how to do that embellishment. But we're going to work on this bracelet today. So here it is. Back off just a little bit. That's what it looks like. Really, I think it came out great. And you have all the beads in the light collection to make this bracelet. And it's about 7 inches. So if you have a 7-inch wrist, you can do that. You can adjust like with, your rings on your toggle bar, etc., to make it bigger or smaller, or whichever you need to do. All right, so I'm going to clear this off. We'll get a materials list going, and we'll get started on this bracelet. Get our materials list going. So you'll need some 11 seed beads and some 15 seed beads. And I used all my crystals, so I'll just tell you what you need. You need 12 millimeter Rivolis. There were 4 of them. And of course, I'm going to link everything in the description box below the video. So all sizes, shapes, colors, amounts of beads, everything you need will be down there. So don't forget to click the down arrow, the show more, box will open, you know the drill. Everything is right there. So you'll need the Rivolis. You need 4 of the Rivolis, and you need some 8 millimeter Chatons. These are 12 millimeter, 8 millimeter Chatons. I have a 3 millimeter fire polish bead here. This really pretty toggle clasp, and I've used just a few of the delicas that were in the collection. Now, one thing I did use here, which I don't use that often, but I'm really loving, is Fireline Black Satin, and you can still get this, but it's £4. And for something like this, because you're going through the beads a lot when you do this kind of bezeling and such, I think £4 is a really, really nice thread to work with. In fact, I'm going to use it more for other projects as well. However, some of this is done with £6, but it's much easier to get £4 Fireline. It's a really nice thin thread, but it's strong. All right, and then I've got a little puff with a cushion with a bunch of needles in it and a little stop bead right there. There you go. That's everything. So as again, I'll list everything in the description box. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to make is this herringbone bezel for the 12 millimeter Rivoli. Get started. So thread your needle with about 4 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, and you want to leave a 12-13 inch tail because we're going to use that tail a little bit later. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead 4 of my 11 seed beads. Just like that. I'm going to sew up the first 2 after my stop bead, just setting up our herringbone here. So just like that. Okay, now we're going to do it a little bit differently than we've done the herringbone bezel in the past. Because in the past, we did our whole line of herringbone. Remember, we attached, and then we wrapped 15 around each bead. Well, I think I found a better way to do it. So let's try this new way. We'll be adding these 15 on as we make the herringbone strips. So I think it'll just be that much easier. So I'm going to pick up 2 15 I'm exiting here. I'm just going to sew through the bottom bead and the top bead right here. So just going around that group of 2, and just want to make sure that they pop over to the side. So I've just added two 15 See that to the side? Now I'm going to sew through these 2 11 I'm going to pick up 2 15 and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to sew down through the 2 11 and you see now I have 2 15 on either side of the 11 I'm going to sew right up through this little 11 stack right here. So this is our base. So we're going to keep building with the 15 our herringbone strip rather than doing them after. Okay, I'm going to pick up 2 11-ohs. I'm going to sew down one 11-oh, so this next one, like that. It's like making a herringbone stitch, make sure it pops over, and then up this 15-oh, right there. And then I'm going to pick up a 15-oh. I'm going to sew down this one, so the 11-oh. And then I'm going to sew up this 11-oh. Then I'm going to pick up a 15-oh. I'm going to sew down this 15-oh here. And as it gets bigger, it will be less, be easier to handle. Sewing down that 15-oh right there, and then up these two. So if you see where this thread is going, it's actually going across right here. So we're going to sew up these two right here. Get my needle in there. There we go. We'll do it a few times. So right there. So now we have the 15-ohs and the 11-ohs on, so we don't have to add them later. Let's do that again. 2 11-ohs. Down this one. Putting your herringbone stitch on, like so, and then up this 15-oh. Like that. Picking up a 15-oh, I'm going to sew through this one, the 11-oh, I'll make that pop over, and up this one, like that. Picking up a 15-oh, I'm going to sew through this 15-oh, right here, like that, and then up these two. And I'll move my thumb in a second. Let me see. Up these two. Right here. Oops. Okay, we'll do that again because it's a little clumsy at the moment, being so small. Okay, let's see if I can do that a little better. So here are 2 11-ohs. Down this 11-oh, making that herringbone stitch, and up the edge 15-oh. Picking up a 15-oh, sewing down this 11-oh, so we're placing that 15-oh on right there, and then up this 11-oh. Like that. Picking up a 15-oh, I'm going to sew down this 15-oh, and then up these two. That's better. So as it gets a little bigger, it's a little easier to handle. We'll do that one more time. 2 11-ohs. Down this one, down this 11-oh. And up this 15-oh. 15-oh. Down this 11-oh. Place that 15-oh on, and up this 11-oh. Like so. 15-oh. Down this 15-oh. Like that. And then up these two. You got it. And then you can just kind of, as you go along, kind of press it down, straighten it out. And look how nice that's looking. And we don't have to add those 15-ohs on later. So you're just going to keep doing this. I think for this 12 millimeter, I did, Rivoli, I did 27. So it's going to be either 26 or 27 stitches. And what you'll do is, when we're done, we'll wrap it around. And, you'll see which fits better, the 26 or 27. So just go on. It doesn't take long. And then meet me at the end and we'll continue. Okay, I have 26 of my units on, and here is my working thread. Here's my tail thread. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to kind of push up our 15-0s. I just want to check size. I'm going to put my stone in. And I think that's going to be fine. So now I'm just going to take my stone out. Okay, stay with me now. So here's my tail thread. Exiting this 11-0, I'm going to sew through all these 15-0s on the side. Don't miss any. Just like that. So here, now my tail thread is up here, and here's my working thread. I'm turning it around a little bit, just like this. So tail thread is up here, working thread is coming out of the 11-0. I'm just going to sew through with my working thread 3 11-0s on the other side. Now I'm not going to do this tight because I don't have my stone, and I just want you to see the thread path right now. So here, exiting these 3 right here, I'm going to sew up these 3 and up, let's say 3 on this side. So this is what the working thread tail thread path looks like. This is what we have so far. So I'm going to pop my stone in like this, and I'm just going to pull my working thread a little bit, and here is my tail thread right there. So I'm going to pick up my tail thread, and here I'm exiting this 15-0. I'm going to connect by sewing through several 15-0s on this side like that. And you can just continue this all the way around for a good connection. Okay, so here I've come all the way around with my going through the 15-0s and past where I connected to start with. And I'm just going to leave that because we can, we can reinforce more if we need to. I'm going to turn it on the back and get this side connected. So this is what it looks like so far. Okay, so I'm on the other side now. I'm with my working thread exiting that 11-0. I'm just going to go right to that 15-0. See that on the side? And I'm going to sew all the 15-0s together on this side. So just keep going around, all the way around to attach all the 15-0s and give it a little pull, gently pull, and you're just going to keep going until you pass where you started. Okay, so I've come around, and at this point you still have your tail thread and your working thread. You can reinforce anything at this point. So I actually came around again. You don't want to break any beads, but I came around, just a little bit more. And if you're finding that maybe, on the side, you need to attach the 11-0s, just move over and sew through the 11-0s. You just want to make sure when you're all said and done that you can get through 3 of them here and 3 of them here to do an attachment. So but there's a lot of space in there, so I'm not too worried about that. Just that's the only thing you need to keep in mind. And there you go. So there's your piece, and like I said, reinforce as much as you need to. You might even need 27. I think on a couple of the units I used 27 herringbone stitches. So it just really depends on how it fits around your stone and how tight it gets. So this is what we have so far. So you could keep one thread because we can use that to attach, or you can just add a thread to attach units together. I think I'm just going to keep one thread and just move it over, and later when we're ready to attach. So you need to make 4 of these Rivoli bezels, and then come back and we'll make the other unit. Let's make the Chaton unit. So thread your needle with about 30 inches of thread, put on a stop bead, and leave enough of a tail to sew in. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead, my fire polish, the 3mm and 3 11-0s. I did that 4 times. Now if you have the collection, you could do the, I think the green fire polish would look really pretty with this too. So up to you. I'm going to sew these into a circle by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead, which is this fire polish. So it looks like. So you're just going to reinforce this all the way around. Come all the way around past where your stop bead is and exit one of the middle 11-ohs of a group of 3. I'm exiting that middle 11-oh of any group of 3, after I've reinforced. I'm going to pick up 4 15-ohs and I'm going to hop over to that next group of 3 11-ohs and sew through the middle bead. And make sure that those sit like so. And do it again. 4 15-ohs. Exiting this 11-oh. Hop over and sew through to the next middle 11-oh of the next group of 3 11-ohs. Just like that. So you can do that 2 more times. Last 4 15-ohs. Exiting this middle 11-oh. I'm going to hop over to the one we originally started with, so that's center 11-oh of that next group of 3. Push that over. This is what it looks like. I'm just going to advance my needle, so I'm exiting here through those 4 15-ohs, and I like to complete the circle or the round. So through those 15-ohs, and then through this 11-oh and the next one, and then the fire polish. So I'd be exiting a fire polish bead. I've given both threads a little pull. We'll sew that tail thread in a little bit. So this part here, where the 15-ohs are, that's going to be in the front. So you just want to make sure those look nice and straight. So I'm exiting this 3mm. I'm going to pick up an 11-oh, a delicate, and 11-oh. I'm going to sew through the next 3mm fire polish. Just kind of pop that up a little bit. I do that again. 11-oh, delicate 11-oh, through the next 3mm fire polish. Do that 2 more times. I'm going to add my last 11-oh, delicate 11-oh. I'm going to sew through the fire polish, and then right through the 11-oh, delicate 11-oh, the next 11-oh, delicate 11-oh, just like that. 3 15-ohs, exiting the 11-oh, delicate 11-oh. Just going to sew through the next group of 11-oh, delicate 11-oh. 3 15-ohs through that next group. Like so. You can pop your stone in. I'm going to put my stone face down. Good weight also. I'm just going to put it in just for placement. Just going to continue that all the way around. So 3 11-ohs, 15-ohs through the 11-oh, delicate 11-oh. One more time. 3 15-ohs through the next 11-oh, delicate 11-oh. I give that a pull, kind of straighten my stone out a little bit, and then I'm going to advance my needle through the next 3 15-ohs, the 11-oh, and the next delicate. So you'll be exiting a delicate. Up 3 15-ohs, I'm exiting this delicate. I'm just going to sew through the next one, so I'm just going to skip everything and just sew through the delicate, like that. And you can kind of play with your stone. It's not going to stay yet. It probably won't stay securely until you have your last 15-ohs on. 3 15-ohs. Through the next delicate. I get my needle in there. There we go. Just continue that all the way around and then reinforce. Last 3 15-ohs through the delicate. And then, as I said, you'll just reinforce that all the way around. Okay, so we're done with the unit, both units. So you're just going to make, you're going to do the 4 of the Rivoli units, and I do all 6. I think we're going to use, let's see, we're going to use 1 2 3 4 5 of the Chaton small unit and attach it to the larger unit. So you want your thread to be exiting that 11-0, delicate 11-0 on the bottom. So here's the bottom row, here's the top, bottom row, top. So make sure if you're not already exiting there, you move there or add a thread and make sure you're exiting here. Add 3 11-0s and you're just going to sew through. I already did it, but any 3 11-0s on that bottom row. So see, I just went through 3. See that? Then I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s and I'm going to sew back through, oops, the 11-0, delicate 11-0. Delica, let's get the 11-0, like so. So that's where we're starting. Point or picot. So exiting this 11-0 here, I'm going to sew through this one. So that's the first one of the 3 we put on. I'm going to skip the middle and sew through the next one. And then I'm going to go back through the 3 on the Rivoli unit. It's going to see how that makes that pop out. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to sew through the first bead of the 3 I put on. I'm going to skip the second one right there and sew through this one. It's going to pop that one up, and then I'm going to sew back through the 11-0. Move this around. 11-0, delicate 11-0. So now you have that first little connection on. This is what it looks like so far. I'm exiting the 11-0, delicate 11-0 right there. I'm just going to flip it to the front and I'm going to sew through. So our thread is coming out in here, you know, the 11-0 down there. I'm just going to sew through the 11-0, delicate 11-0, 3 11-0s on the front, just like that. These 3 11-0s, I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s. We're on the top row now, and I'm going to sew through the corresponding beads on the top row that match the bottom row. So these 3, just like that. I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s, grab some, 3 11-0s. I'm going to sew back through these 3 11-0s on the side of the little unit, and then I'm just going to make the picot just like I did on the bottom. I'm going to sew through the first of the 3 11-0s I put on. I'm going to skip the next one and sew through the following one, and then I'm going to sew through, I know I have to keep moving it around, through these 3 on the unit. And I'm going to pull, so it's going to turn that into a little picot, and then I'm going to sew through this one, so the next 11-0, skipping the next one, sewing through the following one. Make sure your picot picots, and then back through these 3, like that. And now you have your 2 units together, sewn together. So you're just going to keep adding units, you know, just in that fashion until you have all of your units on. So I'm going to do one more, add right here, and then we'll put on the clasp. Let's add one end of the clasp. You can do both ends the exact same way. So here is, I did the toggle ring already, so it's very similar to this unit here. So when you do the bar, you want to add a couple of jump rings. Actually, you can, you know, adjust your size of your bracelet this way. You can add more jump rings, you know, to make it longer if you need to. But I have 2 here, so I've added this one. And you want to make sure that the one you're sewing through is you're going to sew in this direction. So I'm starting on the front this time. I've just threaded my needle with a, 1.5 foot of thread, put on a stop bead, leave a tail to sew in. I've sewn through the first 3 beads right here of the top unit. So I picked up 8 of my 11-0s, and you want to make sure that the 11-0s are going to make it through that ring. So you want to make sure the ring's big enough to fit them, because you're going to kind of separate them. But I have 8 of them on right now, and I'm just going to sew through the other the 3 11-ohs on that unit again. So just like that, make a picot. So I'm exiting here. I'm going to sew through the next 11-oh. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to sew through the next one. It's going to pop that up. And then you want to make sure the next 2 beads that your ring is kind of sitting, not in between them, but right them on either side of your ring, like that. See that? I'm going to sew through the next 2 right here. So you see how I've positioned that. I want those 2 11-ohs, with the ring sitting in there on the 11-ohs. Then I'm going to sew through the next 11-oh. I'm going to skip the next one, sew through the next one to make a picot on this side. Just going to pop that over, and then I'm going to go back through these guys, the 3 11-ohs, make sure that picots, just like so. So we had to, with this unit, we had to sort of make a little, where these 3 beads are, we had to sort of make it so that you've got an 11-oh, the ring in the 11-oh, kind of to mimic those 3 that are on the other side. So just like that. Turn my piece to the other side, and I'm going to sew through the 11-oh delicate 11-oh on this side. Then I'm going to do the exact, I'm not going to do the exact same thing. Here, let's say, I lied, right? I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs, and I'm going to sew through just the 2 that are under the ring. See that? Like so. I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs, and I'm going to sew back through the 11-oh delicate 11-oh, like so. And then I'm going to make my picot on this side. I'm going to sew through this 11-oh. I'm going to skip the next one. I'm going to sew through the next one. Make sure that kind of sticks up. Then I'm just going to advance through those 2 that are under the ring. And this one. Skipping the middle one. Sew through this one. Make your picot. And then through these 3 again. Yeah, we're going through these beads a lot, but it's not a problem. It hasn't been a problem. Just give that a little pull, push down, like I've set the beads a little bit, so when I turn on the front, this is what it looks like. So you're going to do that exact same thing on this side. You don't need to add any jump rings here. Just use this ring right here. And finish that up, sew in your threads, come back, and we will finish everything. Okay, we're back and we're done, and I think it came out really pretty. It's a little fussy to make, but just take your time and do a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow. Just don't work on it just from start to finish. That way, you don't get frustrated or you don't get tired. So there you go. Here's the clasp. My bracelet ended up being 7 inches, just about exactly, with these particular beads and this clasp. So you get an idea of the fit. It's pretty close to my wrist, but it's not tight. All right, so there you go. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I will be making the video on the, embellishing the earrings and the necklace with the different beads. So, stay tuned for that. So I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.